Right, my name's Jacqueline Richards. I studied nutritional medicine with the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and I've been a speaker for Shine on various subjects, and today I'm going to talk to you about understanding the immune system and mRNA. mRNA is one of those things that's been bandied around recently for an obvious reason, but does anybody really know what mRNA is? So understanding what it is, how the body makes it, what it does with it, is really will put things into perspective. The talk today is in 3 parts. First part, I will be talking about the immune system, and I've got quite a few slides on that, and I will speed through them. Don't worry, you will get it, okay? You know, you're not going to remember everything I say, but as long as you've got an idea in your head. But you will get it by the end, I promise that. Part 2 is where I talk about the mRNA and explain what it is. And there's not actually that many slides for that. Part 3, I'm not telling you what it is because it's a surprise. And I'm not going to spoil the surprise, okay? But the 3 parts, they do link into each other. And by understanding the immune system, you'll understand parts 2 and 3 a lot better, okay? And it's very interesting stuff. Now, if any of you took the COVID jab, particularly the mRNA one, I'm not here to put you in fear. I'm here to offer solutions for you, and I will end up with solutions, okay? Right. Now, I will be talking about viruses. There's this idea going around that viruses don't exist and that they're perhaps exosomes that the body is making. That may or may not be true. I'm not going into that. That's not what the talk is about, but I will be using the word viruses. For the purposes of this talk, what they are doesn't matter, okay? So I don't want anybody saying, oh yes, but viruses don't exist, okay? It doesn't make any difference. So let's move on. So what does a healthy immune system do? And I use the word healthy. We want a healthy immune system because it's amazing. So first off, it identifies potentially infectious or injurious substances. And there's a lot of them out there. It distinguishes self-antigens from non-self, and that's really important because it doesn't want to be attacking itself. An antigen is something that triggers an immune response. It's very clever. It assesses the potential level of threat posed by infectious, toxic, or non-self. And then it can mount a response that's appropriate to the level of threat. Don't want a response that's too low because it won't fix the problem. Too high, it's going to make you sick. Very clever. And finally, it repairs. The immune system actually repairs any damage that ensues from these encounters. Okay, it's really clever. So let's talk how it all works. We start off with the layered defense of immunity. It's just 3 layers. The first line, external, that's non-specific, and I'm going to explain what that means in a moment. The second line is internal, non-specific. And then the third line is internal and specialized, sometimes known as the specific or adaptive immune system. And this is where the immune system gets really interesting. So let's just explain what non-specific innate means. So this is the body's first line of defense against germs entering the body. It responds in the same way to all germs and foreign substances, which is why it's sometimes referred to as non-specific, the non-specific immune system. It acts very quickly, And then the acquired immunity, the specific defense, adaptive immunity. The difference is the acquired immune system takes over if the innate immune system is not able to destroy the germs. So something's got past that first line, okay? It specifically targets the germ that is causing the infection. And to do that, it first needs to identify the germ, which means that it is slower to respond than the innate system, but when it does respond, it's very accurate. And the acquired immune system has the advantage of being able to remember. It has memory. So the next time it encounters that germ, the immune system can kick in very quickly. It responds very quickly the second time. So this memory is also the reason why there are some illnesses you only get once in your life. You can encounter it again and you don't even know. The immune system is so good at responding. And the acquired immune system is not present at birth. It's called adaptive, as the immune system must adapt itself to encountered threats. So far so good. I'm sure that makes sense. So let me talk a little bit about each line. So the first line, the external, non-specific, we're talking here about your physical barriers. So your physical, your skin, that's part of it. Your mucosal barriers, so snot, that's part of it. You know, if you've got a bit got mucus in your throat and you're coughing, that's it. So the skin, your gastric acid, that's a really, really important part of this first line. If you're on omeprazole to switch off your stomach acid, you're not doing yourself a favour, okay? So mucus, enzymes in the tears, so crying is part of the immune response. Saliva, saliva's got enzymes in as well. Skin oils, you know, they say we wash too much and we're washing all our oil away. And also, very important, the cough reflex. If you need to cough, don't suppress it. And this first line, non-specific, it does not require memory to an antigen. And what's an antigen? It's any substance that when introduced to the body has the potential to trigger an immune response, especially the production of antibodies. And I'll be talking about antibodies later because that's really interesting. So, right, approximately 70% of the immune system and more than 80% of the antibody cells are located within the mucosa of the gastrointestinal tract, right? What I'm saying there is up to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And when you know that, you know why you have to look after your digestive health. So, yeah, and the astute amongst you might say, yes, but Jacqueline, the gut is not external, and we're talking about external. Well, actually, it is external. It's the outside, but in. It's epithelial tissue. It's like it's one big tube. Just think of a donut, the hole in the middle of the donut. So it's regarded as external, even though it's inside us. So just to explain that. Right, coming on to the second line, again, non-specific, but we are talking internal now, okay? So we've got our antimicrobial cells, proteins and processes. The processes include inflammation and fever. And I'm sure we all have experienced that. So these include internal antimicrobial proteins, interferons and interleukins. You've probably heard of them. So they're cytokine proteins produced by a cell that's infected with a virus. And I think we've all heard about cytokines in the last 5 years because they talked about cytokine storms, didn't they? And this is what it means. It's this non-specific cytokine protein response to a cell infected by a virus. Phagocytes. I love phagocytes. They eat. I can't say phagocytes without going like that. And every time I say phagocytes, I'm going to go like that, okay? So they're non-selective. They engulf and digest anything foreign. Phagocytosis. So two major types are macrophages, monocytes, and neutrophils. And dead phagocytes accumulate pus. So if you've got a boil, you've had a lot of phagocytosis going on, okay? And this one, what a name, natural killer cells. So they're lymphocytes that attack anything that they do not recognise, including abnormal body cells and virally infected cells. Now, it's present in the blood, lymph nodes, spleen, and bone marrow. They cause the cell to die. Now, these are what we need for detecting and controlling early signs of cancer. So, our best defense against cancer is having a strong immune system. What people don't realise is all of us, at any one time, have cancer cells in us. Our immune system, our second line, internal, non-specific line of defence is sorting it out for us, and we don't have to worry, as long as we give the body the right tools and look after our immune system, which I will talk about later. And there's something called the complement system, which is very complicated, and it's made of over 30 proteins circulating around the body, and they destroy microbes and promote phagocytosis. They contribute to inflammation, and they cause the bursting of the cells and the microbes. And I'm not going to mention the complement system again, okay? Right, I'm going to talk about inflammation. We need inflammation, it's really important. It is a very important part of the immune system. And you've got the acute inflammation where you've got an infection, say, your immune system sorts it out, it's gone. Chronic inflammation, however, is not good news, and that tends to affect most of the body. So, causes of inflammation, we've got pathogens, abrasions, chemicals, cell disturbance, and extreme temperatures. I hope it's not too extreme today. And then signs of inflammation, redness, heat, pain, swelling, and loss of function. I don't think there's any surprises there. But there are benefits to inflammation. Promotion of phagocytosis. Making pus. Promotion of immune response so that the antibodies can enter the cell. Toxin dilution, that's quite important. So if you have an accumulation of fluids because of inflammation, that's actually diluting toxins. And fibrin formation to wall off the inflamed area and help bind wound edge. It's ever so clever, isn't it? It does so much. Yeah, most people think the immune system is just a few antibodies, perhaps a few white blood cells, that's it. But no, it's ever so clever. It really, when you look at how the body works at detail like this, you know, we have to be God-given. You know, we have to be. You've got to respect our bodies and look after them and honour them. So that's the benefits of inflammation. And then harmful effects of inflammation, because it's not all good. So you get swelling. That's uncomfortable, can be painful, so you get pain. Suppuration from your phagocytosis. Abscess formation. Atherosclerosis, which is narrowed arteries. Adhesions and scar tissues, they can be quite painful. Now, chronic inflammation, that can lead to cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disorders, cancer, and musculoskeletal disorders. And we don't want chronic inflammation. And a lot of people are walking around with chronic inflammation. It's not good. Honestly, I look at some people And I think, how are you alive? The body's amazing, it really is. So that was inflammation. Fever. We seem obsessed if we've got a high temperature, bringing it down. That is the worst thing you can do. Fever is part of the immune response. We need fever. I've got a picture up there. Signs and symptoms of fever, and no surprises there. Runny nose, sore throat, joint pain, muscle pain, sore eyes, cold sores, nausea, vomiting, rapid heart, etc., etc. Chills, fatigue, infections. So we've all had fever, haven't we? We've all had fever. So fever is defined as a body temperature 38 degrees C or above. Normal body temperature is about 36.5 to 37. So 38 C or above. Now, why do we get high body temperature? Why is it necessary for our immune system to work? So it makes interferons more effective, and interferons are a group of signalling proteins made and released by the host cells in response to the presence of several viruses, okay? So it makes interferons. Now this is the main one. It inhibits the growth of some microbes because the microbes don't like it when we have a high body temperature. They can't survive. So it actually kills them off. So honour your fever. Don't take paracetamol to bring your temperature down, because that's what they give you paracetamol for, is to bring your body temperature down. And you know, you've got that high temperature for a reason. You're fighting something, let it. And if you bring your body temperature down, you're just prolonging the healing. And it speeds up reactions that aid repair. Now, I say just go with a high body temperature, but if it reaches 40 degrees C and above, seek medical help, because that is actually a dangerous temperature for us. It can really damage us. So yeah, 40 degrees C, then get worried and go to the doctor or take your paracetamol. But that is in extreme situations that your body would reach 40 degrees C. You know, it's a difficult one with children because they do get fevers. They're building their immune system, and you know, mothers reach for the Calpol to bring their temperature down, but they're fighting an infection and they're building up their immunity. Yeah, and you don't want to see your children suffer, so you do what you can at that time. It's a very difficult one, that. But you've got to trust that the immune system is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Right, so that's the first and second line. Non-specific. External and internal. Third line, internal and specialised. This is where it gets really interesting. So it's also known as the acquired adaptive specific immunity. So here we're talking about white blood cells and antibodies, okay? So the white blood cells are leukocytes and lymphocytes, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. So it's possible to acquire immunity both actively and passively by either natural or artificial means. So a naturally acquired immunity, obviously exposure to a disease. You can transfer antibodies across the placenta from the mother to child or through breast milk. And that sets the baby up with a bit of an immune system from the mother, and it lasts a few weeks to a few months. So, and then hopefully the baby's own immune system can start building its own acquired immunity. An artificially acquired immunity, vaccination, and injection with antibodies. And I'll talk a little bit about vaccination later, okay? I think it's a subject close to all our hearts, isn't it? So let's talk about the white blood cells. There are quite a few of them. I'm going to whiz through these. Don't worry, I don't expect you to remember them, but some of the names of them, if you've ever had a blood test and you seen the results, you might recognise the names, okay? So the first one is basophils, made in the bone marrow, responds to allergens and releases histamine. So this is allergies. Next one is mast cells, made in the bone marrow again. They are released into the blood but do not fully mature until they are recruited into the tissues. So what they are, they're there, but they've got no job to do, they've got no specialisation, no purpose until we get an infection, but they're there to respond. And then they learn what they've got to do. And they're long-lived with an important role in increasing inflammation, which I've just talked about. And again, they release histamines. More white blood cells. There's quite a few of them. So eosinophils, their defence against parasites. And the eosinophil accumulation and inappropriate activation causes asthma, allergic asthma. So that's what's going on when you have asthma. Neutrophils, now that's the most abundant of white blood cells, and they represent the first line of defence in response against bacterial and fungal infections by phagocytosis. Eats them up. I have to do that every time I say that word. And they are a major constituent of pus. It's great that I can use that word pus, legitimately. Pus. Sorry. Oh, I'm not offending you, am I? So, now, they can be raised by strenuous exercise and heavy smoking, which doesn't affect me in either case, especially the strenuous exercise. Yeah, so some people come back with blood results. Yeah, so some people, they get the blood test back and they say, ooh, my neutrophils are high. But if you're a smoker or you exercise heavily, it will raise it, so it might not be a cause for concern. So there's more. So we're still on the leukocytes, the white blood cells. Monocytes and macrophages, so they're the main action against bacterial infection, and it promotes fever, globulin production, and I'm going to talk about globulins because globulins or immunoglobulins, they're your antibodies, okay, and T-cell activation. And these are the ones that release the cytokines, the interferons and interleukins associated with fever and inflammation. Oh, you could sneeze. Oh, okay. Right, so that was the leukocytes. So there's quite a few of them. I've whizzed through it. I don't expect you to remember. I'm not going to be testing you afterwards, okay? But then we come on to the lymphocytes, and it all gets so interesting. I get very excited about how the body works. So it comes in two major types, B cells and T cells, and everyone here must have heard of B cells and T cells. Well, if you hadn't, you know about them now, and I'm going to tell you about them. So these are lymphocytes. The B cells, I attack invaders outside the cells. T cells, I attack infected cells. That's putting it very, very simply. And the peripheral blood contains 20 to 50% of the circulating lymphocytes. The rest move into the lymph system. And lymph is a colourless fluid that circulates throughout the lymphatic system. The main role of the lymphatic system is to act as a filter against microbes, organic waste, toxins and other debris. And it carries lymphocytes throughout the body that fight against infections. So the lymph system is really, really important for transporting the B and T cells. And, you know, we've all heard, oh, I've got congested lymph. So unlike the blood, which is pumped by the heart, and I know some people say it's not a pump, it's a vortex. Well, it is a pump. It pumps. You can feel it. You can hear it. But it may be a vortex as well. But the lymphatic system doesn't have that pump, so movement is very important. Rebounding is a good one to get it all going, and walking. So movement. Now, they learn to respond to antigens and immune labels. And they recognise self from non-self molecules. Now, each B and T cell is specific for a particular antigen. And I'll show you that in a moment. And they possess memory for previously encountered antigens. So you can see why they're internal, they're specific, and they're acquired through life. There we go. So the T cells attack infected cells. Right, the T lymphocytes are produced in bone marrow and then move to the thymus. And I don't know if you can see that, but that glow below here, that's where the thymus is. So it moves to the thymus, and that's where they mature. And they go to school. They have to learn. They are trained. And if they don't pass their exams, they're destroyed, because we can't have ineffective T cells circulating around. So they do learn. It's quite interesting. So the T from the T cell comes from the word thymus. It's that simple. And the T cells, now, it's never that simple, is it? There are always different types and subsets. So I'm just going to quickly go through the different types of T cells, and it does make sense. So the first type is the T helper cells, and they mediate the innate, that's not the acquired, the innate immune response through the release of cytokines. So, but their primary task is to activate B cells and killer T cells. I love that word, killer. In response to the immune, pus, killer. All in context of the immune system, of course. I don't stalk the streets at night, just looking for killers. So these killer or cytotoxic T cells, these are the cells that destroy virally infected cells directly, as well as cancer cells. So again, you really need a good immune system to protect yourself against cancer. So, it's best just to not get cancer in the first place and try and fix it once you got it. Prevention is better than cure. Now, these are the cells that are responsible for transplant reactions, because it's so if you've got a transplanted organ, it's non-self. And the immune system knows it's non-self and tries to destroy it. So what do? They give you steroids, which switch off your immune system. Lots of consequences of that. And memory T cells, these cells remember an antigen and attack it directly when they become activated. Great. And finally, regulatory T cells, these shut down the T cell response. So if you've had an immune reaction, it's done its job, nothing left to see here, switch it down, do any repair. So you've got to keep that immunity in check, because if it runs loose, that's not good. You might as well not have an immune system. So regulatory T cells, they're very important for just stopping it all once the threat has gone. Now the B lymphocytes attack invaders outside of the cells. They're also made in the bone marrow, but they stay there. That's where they go to school. They go to school as well, and they learn their job, and they become specialised, and they take their name from the B in bone marrow. as opposed to T for thymus. Now these are activated by the T helper cells. It's the only way they're activated. In AIDS, people don't produce T cells, so they don't produce B cells. B cells start to divide to produce clones of itself, a positive clone. So during this process, two new cell types are created, plasma cells and B memory cells. Don't worry, I'm going to explain that. It's all very simple. So the plasma cell is specialised in producing antibodies. So we're coming on to our antibodies. IG, immunoglobulin. That's quite a mouthful to say, so I will say antibodies or IG. So plasma cells produce IGs at an amazing rate. They release tens of thousands of IGs per second. It's very impressive. And the B memory cells, the other type that's produced, they have a prolonged lifespan, and these hold the memory against specific intruders. Anything it's encountered before, it will remember and it will respond. So that's the B lymphocytes. And they produce the antibodies. And I'm going to talk about antibodies now. Right, an antibody, also known as IG, it's a large Y-shaped protein to identify and neutralise a foreign object known as an antigen. And remember, it's produced exclusively by the B cells. Now, this is really interesting. I've got a little pointer here, and oh, there, can you see it? I don't know how well you can see. I don't know how well you can see these slides, but if you look, where's that? So that bit there, that's an antigen. That's an invader. This Y shape, that's your antibody, but it's got a binding site that matches exactly to the antigen, and that's why it's specialised for that antigen and won't work on any other antigen. It learns, okay? So it's sort of like a lock and key. And there you are, there's another one. It's a different shape because it's a different antigen. Does that make sense? Very clever, very clever. And of course there are lots of different types of antibodies. There are subsets of all these, and I'm sure you can't read that at all, so I'm just going to read through it. So IG stands for immunoglobulin, which is your antibody, and the first one I'm going to talk about is IgG, okay? And this is the most common, and it protects against bacteria and viruses by neutralising toxins and enhancing phagocytosis. Gets the phagocytes out there. And it's the only antibody that can cross the placenta. IgG, this is where you get your intolerances from, your food intolerances. Not allergies, that's a different IG. Intolerances. And if you can keep off that antigen, let's say I'm not talking about celiacs where they've got an allergy, but if you've got an intolerance to gluten, if you can keep off gluten, for example, and it might be something else, for at least 3 months, the body forgets. And you can start again with intolerances, but you can't just take a little bit. I'll keep it going. You have to cut it out completely for at least 3 months. IgM, that's produced in large quantities in the primary response. So the first time you have an infection, they kick in. And physically, they're much larger than the other antibodies. IgA, that's found in body secretions such as breast milk, saliva, tears and mucus. And it prevents antigens crossing epithelial membranes, that's skin, and invading deeper into the body. And IgE, now this is an interesting one. It's found on cell membranes, basophils, mast cells, etc. It binds its antigen and activates the inflammatory response. This is the one that gives you your allergies, not intolerances, allergies. And you will find a serum IgE levels rise if you've got parasitic infections. So it's quite a useful measure to see if you've got parasites. IgE, that's your allergic reaction. The body doesn't forget that. Completely different to intolerances. People say, oh, I'm allergic to, but they're not. They're intolerant. Allergies are different. This is where you can go into anaphylaxis and die. And then IgD, that's involved in B cell activation. So that's your antibodies. So what I've just done is I've just flung a lot of information at you and you're thinking, what the hell? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simplify this and you're going to say, ah, yes, I get it now. I get it. So I'm going to summarise this. Got 3 lines of defence, your external non-specialised, internal non-specialised, internal specialised. Okay, so far? You've got your physical and mucosal barriers, you've got inflammation and fever, you've got your white blood cells, your leukocytes, you've got your lymphocytes, your T and the B cells. T cells activate B cells, which create antibodies. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your immune system. And I'm pleased that I can put it so simply and succinctly on one slide like that. It took me ages to think. Actually, it is all quite simple. It all does fit together. So that is our beautiful immune system working constantly every moment. It's working so hard for us. Let's look after it. So how do you know you've got a weak immune system? There's an awfully long list here. And I tell you, every one of you, you're going to say, oh my God, I've got that, I've got that, I've got... Don't worry. Don't worry. We all get things from time to time. And we've got a strong immune system. And you look after yourself and it passes. So don't worry. But yeah, this is a very long list. So I'm going to whiz through it. So don't stop me and buy one. I'm just going to whiz through it. And don't worry if you find something on that list that you've got. Cold hands, because of inflamed blood vessels. Constipation or diarrhea. So that might be a warning sign that your immune system is harming the lining of your small intestine. And as I said earlier, 80% of your immune system is in your digestive tract. Dry eyes, that could be an autoimmune disorder. Fatigue, mild fever, headaches. You might have inflamed blood vessels in the brain. Rash or skin infections. How are we doing? Achy joints. Oh my God, as you get older, we all know that one. So it may be worse in the morning. Patchy hair loss. Perhaps the immune system has attacked the hair follicles. There's more. Repeated infections and having to take antibiotics more than twice a year. Antibiotics. They destroy your microbiome, your gut bacteria. And as I said, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. So be cautious before you take the antibiotics. They're not sweets to take. And they don't work against viruses anyway. You might get sinus infections, ear infections. Slow recovery time from infections. So as I said earlier, the immune system is involved in repair and putting things right afterwards. So that might not be working. Delayed wound healing, and that's part of the slow recovery time. So wounds take longer to heal. Actually, that's a sign of diabetes as well. Sensitive to sun. So you may get an allergic reaction to UV light. Photodermatitis. You may get blisters or a rash. Scaly patches. Yeah, or it might give you chills, headache, nausea. Tingling or numbness in hands and feet. It could be that your immune system is attacking your nerves. Trouble swallowing, the esophagus, throat, the tube that carries food from your mouth to your stomach could be swollen or too weak to work. There's more. Unexplained weight change. So you might gain weight, you may lose weight. And this is possible because the immune system has damaged your thyroid. White patches, known as vitiligo. So sometimes your immune system attacks your skin, the pigment cells, melanocytes. Now, yellowing of skin or eyes, jaundice, that means you may have problems with your liver. Your immune system is attacking your liver. Do not ignore jaundice. Generally, I just ignore if something goes wrong, but there are what they call red flags, and jaundice is one of them. Autoimmune diseases, where the body's immune system mistakenly attacks its own cells. And as I said earlier, it's supposed to distinguish self from non-self. Sometimes that goes wrong. And then you get an autoimmune disease. And you may get blood disorders and blood cancer. As I said earlier, we've all got cancer in us at every moment, but the immune system just sorts it out. Yeah, anemia, haemophilia, blood clots, blood cancers, leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma. If you've got a good, healthy, strong immune system, anemia, haemophilia, blood clots, blood cancers, leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma. If you've got a good, healthy, strong immune system, you shouldn't get cancer. Certain foods, animal dander, mites, dust, chemicals, detergents, latex, pollen. The list goes on with allergies. I've got an allergy to eggs. That's a difficult one because I like cake. Anaphylactic shock, so that's where you've got the severe systemic allergic response with the IgE. And I always remember that because I always think E stands for emergency. And IgG, which is not an allergic response, it's that G, in my mind, that stands for general. So that's how I remember it. Anaphylactic shock, autoimmune conditions where the system fails to display self-tolerance. Lupus, a chronic condition affecting connective tissue in any part of the body. Obviously, you've got some personal relative or something, yeah. And with lupus, you tend to get a butterfly rash because lupus stands for wolf. So it's that sort of winged or wolfy-ish shape, and you can get it there or here or over your eyes or whatever. So that's why it's called lupus. It's not good. Rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, that's chronic inflammation of the spine and sacroiliac joints around here. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, so the thyroid gland is being gradually destroyed and it prevents the thyroid from making thyroid hormones. Or on the flip side, Graves' disease, it results in hyperthyroidism where you're producing too many thyroid hormones. Right, so now I've scared you. Don't worry, solutions, always solutions. So what you have to do, you have to look after your immune system, you have to support it, love it. And the way you do that is a comprehensive plan involving lifestyle, stress management and diet. No surprises there. You know, we can all be a bit guilty of overdoing things a bit, being stressed, drugs, alcohol, whatever, smoking, not eating well. But really you've got to be aware of how it's affecting your immune system. Right, stress. I'm going to talk about stress management first. Stress is such a major cause for weakening your immune system. It is devastating. And so many of us live with stress, not short bursts of stress, where the adrenaline kicks in, and then the threat is gone and you calm down and go back to whatever you were doing. This is chronic stress, and modern day life is terrible. Always stress. Got to go to it, got to earn money, got to get the kids to school. Blah, blah, blah. The list goes on, and we never, ever calm down because the body's producing cortisol. And as I said before, if you've got an organ transplant, to switch off the immune system, they give you steroids, which is cortisol. So if you're stressed, you are actually switching off your immune system, and it makes you very ill. So, as I say, if you're stressed for a long time, increase levels of cortisol. Cortisol at increased levels suppresses the cells of the immune system, thus increased stress decreases the body's ability to fight infections. Common sense. Makes sense, doesn't it? So, supporting the immune system, continuing, stress, just de-stress, okay? Easier said than done. Exercise. This is my least favourite one. I was definitely built for comfort, not speed. But vigorous exercise can increase cortisol levels and suppress immunity. So I'm telling you not to exercise vigorously. I don't think I've ever done anything vigorously, to be honest. But exercising in moderation can boost immunity. So if you've got a busy schedule, exercising in moderation for 3 hours a week is sufficient to improve immunity. That's good news, because that's not a lot in a week, is it? So weekly exercise may include brisk walking, yoga, dancing, swimming, sports, hiking or jogging, and in my case, walking the dog. And exercising outdoors, whenever safely possible, is found to be more beneficial than exercising indoors, and I think that's common sense, isn't it? That's a no-brainer. So exercise, adequate sleep, really does boost immunity. And it reduces stress. Adults require an average of 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. I do. How many of us get that? Probably not many. You do? Excellent. Oh, how'd you do that? I wish I could do that. Sometimes stress just, you can't switch your brain off and you just can't sleep. You've got to just look at your lifestyle. Adequate hydration, staying hydrated does not directly boost the immune system but improves overall health. And drinking plenty of fluids ensures the smooth function of the kidneys, gastrointestinal tract. If you don't drink enough, you will get constipated. Heart and other organ systems. And fluids help maintain healthy skin, which is first line of defence. Right, diet. Okay, this weekend we've had no problems. That food is beautiful. It is so nourishing. And you just feel it nourishing us. It's alive. It's perfect. It's what we should be eating. So, diet, whole organic plant food. Fruits, berries, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes. They're very rich in nutrients and antioxidants. Antioxidants decrease inflammation and reduce free radicals. And free radicals, they are atoms that have a missing electron. They're not paired. They should always be paired. So antioxidants donate an electron without becoming a free radical itself. So again, your fruit and veg. So fruits and vegetables, they're rich in nutrients such as vitamin C, which may reduce the duration and frequency of the common cold and other infections. Plant foods rich in fibre help maintain healthy gut, like I say, 80% of the immune system. It looks after your microbiome. You want to look after your microbiome. So healthy gut bacteria prevents harmful microorganisms from entering the body through the gut. You see, we have a microbiome and it's lining our gut. If that microbiome is weakened or disappears through whatever reason, probably antibiotics, it can take 2 years to get it back. And in that time, the pathogens, they're opportunistic and they will take place instead. So your bacteria, your virus, your parasites, and even thrush, fungus. So you have to look after your microbiome. And spices, clove, oregano, cinnamon, cumin, they contain antiviral, antifungal and antibacterial properties. They're beautiful. Spices are incredible for our health and our immune system. And you've got to replace the bad fats with good fats. So what are they, I hear you say? Now, don't eliminate fats. Do you know, we've been indoctrinated for decades now. Fats are bad for you. And they put you on cholesterol reducing tablets. We need cholesterol. Our brain is cholesterol. We need fats. We need saturated fats. Our brain's saturated fats. The sheath that covers the nerves is saturated fat. We need fats. I mean, don't go out and eat a whole pat of butter. I'm not telling you that. But, fats have been demonized. But you've got to eat the right fats, the good fats, because they reduce inflammation and strengthen the immune system and feed our brain. Now, omega-3 fatty acids, you find them in oily seafood, fish oil. Now, I will be talking about fish and meat and eggs and what have you here. I don't want to offend any vegetarians or vegans, but I'm going to talk about them. You make your own choices, and there's always ways around it. So, fish oil, you can take supplements. You can include flax seeds, walnuts, they're high in omega-3. And omega-3 fatty acids also improve memory and improve the health of skin, hair and nails. Now, omega-3 is very important in damping down inflammation. Omega-6, we need omega-6 because that increases inflammation, and if you've got infection, you want inflammation. There are times you want inflammation, but it has to switch off, and it's about balance, the right balance. You want 1-to-1, omega-3, omega-6. Ideally, we will never achieve that. 1-to-3, 1 omega-3, 3 omega-6, that's fine, that's ideal. The modern Western diet, the ratio is 1-to-30. So you can see why people are wandering around with chronic inflammation. So coconut oil, that's a good fat. It's antibacterial, antiviral and antifungal. And it's a really good source of energy. Now butter, it contains saturated fats, which is good for your brain and nerves. It also contains butyric acid, and that's very good for your digestive tract. It's a major source of energy for colon cells. So butter, never, ever, ever, please never eat margarine, seed oils, hydrogenated fats, overheated fats. They are damaging, they're dangerous. They will cause inflammation and sickness. So probiotics, they're rich in healthy gut bacteria. And as I said, 80% of the immune system is in the gut. So, and I did touch on this earlier, they keep harmful microorganisms from entering the body through the gut. Because your gut, as I said earlier, is actually outside. It's inside. It's outside but inside. It's one long tube. So we're exposed to all sorts with what we put in our mouth. But healthy immune system and gut bacteria, we're fine. And if you don't want to take a supplement, and really you shouldn't need to unless you've been on antibiotics, So fermented food, yogurt, kefir, tofu, kimchi, sauerkraut, they're all high in the probiotic bacteria. And actually, just being out in nature, you know, children, they're too clean these days. They're not exposed to all these. Kids have to get out and play in the muck because that's where the bacteria is. And we're so afraid of bacteria, thinking it's all bad for us. It's not. Okay, there are some seriously pathogenic bacteria out there, but we're not exposed to it very often, particularly in this country where the climate is more moderate. Kids need to get out and play. And if you've got a cat or a dog, they go out into the garden, into the countryside. They come home, you stroke them. You are benefiting from that. You're picking up this bacteria from your pet. You can also pick up some nasty things from them, but that's another story. But yeah, having pets can be very healthy. And also, it calms your stress. Diet, again, further on diet. Phytonutrients. We all know about vitamins and minerals. No one talks about phytonutrients. They are just as important. So you can take all the supplements in the world and be getting your vitamins and minerals. But if you're not getting your phytonutrients, you're not going to be in optimal health. And what are phytonutrients? So these are compounds in the food. And generally they give it, you know, the colour. I always say, eat a rainbow of food. Colour, colour, colour. So flavonoids, for example. I mean, there are many, many. I'm not going into them all. Resveratrol, this is my favourite because it's in red grapes and it's found in abundance in red wine. Just saying, just saying. Oops. Quercetin. Quercetin is wonderful. It's highly anti-inflammatory and it's very high levels in apples, black and green tea, brassica veg, buckwheat, capers, citrus fruit, cranberries, garlic, raspberries, red grapes, red onions, tomatoes. This is all that we've been eating this weekend. It's wonderful. And quercetin is nature's antihistamine. That's the job it does. Right, I'm not going to read out that name, but it's EGCG, and this is basically green tea. It's a polyphenol. Green tea is very antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and it's very helpful in fighting autoimmune diseases, such as type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. Green tea, okay? And I can never say that name. Sjorgens. That's where you dry up. Basically, you don't have any tears, saliva. Everything in your body dries up. Diet. So an anti-inflammatory diet, as I said earlier, excess omega-6. Avoid it. Trans fats and hydrogenated fats. So hydrogenated fats, such as margarines, and it's the fats they've messed about with. So the molecular structure is not quite right. The body doesn't quite know what to do with it. So mass-produced food and biscuits, cake, cheap stuff like that. I think they are getting better now at removing the hydrogenated fats, but there was a time when everything had them. It's cheap. It's cheap to put in. And trans fats, where you know, if you're frying something and you put a bit of oil in the pan, that's fine. But if it starts to smoke, that has become a trans fat, and that is very dangerous. So you throw it away and you start again. If you're stir-frying vegetables, you see a lot of steam coming off. That's okay, that's steam. And the water in the vegetables means that the fat can't get hot enough to become a trans fat. Because you see the Chinese with their woks really stirring away over huge heat. There's so much steam coming off, a lot of water in the vegetables. So that's different. But if you just want to preheat the fat before you put something in the pan and it starts to smoke, get rid of it. Avoid processed meats that have sodium nitrate or nitrites. And that's in a lot of meat, sausages and things like that, and bacon. Sadly, you can get sausages and bacon without them. You've got to shop around and pay a bit more. It's worth it if you eat meat. Artificial colourings, diet beverages with aspartame. Aspartame is awful stuff, as I'm sure you all know. And MSG, a hidden MSG. They call it all sorts of different things. Just hide it, but it's there. So, you know, just eat as natural as possible. Cook yourself. Start from scratch with good, honest, fresh vegetables and meat. Minimise large fish such as tuna and swordfish, because the mercury, they tend to be at the top of the fish food chain because they eat smaller and they eat smaller, so they accumulate mercury. A bit of tuna is fine. And avoid farm raised salmon because of the PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. And you look at the farm salmon and it's so pale, and then you look at a lovely bit of Atlantic salmon that's come from the wild and it's so deep pink. And limit red meat or eliminate it unless it's free range, grass fed, beef or lamb, organic preferably, and choose leaner cuts of meat. And there's a nice picture of anti-inflammatory foods, flax seeds, green tea, turmeric, melons, avocados, walnuts, lemon, berries, pineapple, kale, garlic, broccoli, and the list goes on and on and on. So it's, you know, I think we all know this. It's just putting it into practice is the hard thing, isn't it? Because sometimes it's, you look at the chip shop, you think, oh, fish and chips. No, get behind me, Satan. I want some green tea and flax seeds. And if we're talking about nutrients, you might be looking at supplements. Not all supplements are equal. You don't ever buy your supplements from supermarkets, Boots, Holland and Barrett, because a lot of them are synthetic. They do you no good whatsoever. You have to have food-based supplements, and they are a lot more expensive. So vitamin C, I'm talking about nutrients that are specific for boosting your immunity here. Vitamin C, 1 to 2 grams a day. You can't actually technically overdose on vitamin C, but if you get to a high enough level, it will affect your digestive tract, and you'll know. So if you eat it, it's really hard to eat that much vitamin C, to be honest. But aloe vera juice, black currants, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, citrus, guava, peppers, pineapple, potatoes, raw cabbage, rose hips, strawberries, sweet potatoes and tomatoes, all high in vitamin C. Now vitamin E, it's really hard to get a supplement that's not synthetic, so I don't tell people to supplement with vitamin E. I've said they're 1 milligram a day, but you can eat it. Almonds, apricot oil, beef, corn, egg yolks. Eggs keep coming up, they're really good. Nuts and seeds, leafy green veg, fish, wheat germ. And vitamin E also protects vitamin C, which is an antioxidant, so it stops it becoming an oxidant itself. Vitamin D, right, it says here 200 to 400 IU a day. It's really confusing because sometimes they use grams, milligrams, IUs, UGs. Doesn't matter, I'm not going into that. It'll say on the bottle what it is and the dose. But that is really low. That is very low. They were talking about giving people in the old folks' homes vitamin D supplements because they don't get out in the sun. And vitamin D is really, really important for your immune system as well as your bones. And the dose that they suggested was ridiculously low. If you get out into the sun, I've got a wonderful app on my phone called D-Minder, and I recommend it to everyone. It's fabulous. I love playing with D-Minder. And you go out in the sun and you set your D-Minder and you tell it how cloudy it is and how much you're wearing, and it calculates how much vitamin D you are producing. By the way, the sun has to be at least 30 degrees in the sky to make vitamin D. So in the winter, you cannot make vitamin D from the sun. The sun is too low in the sky. So really we're talking about March to October here in the UK. Further north you go, that window is reduced. The further south you go, that window is increased. So we ideally, nice sunny day like this, we should be out in the sun at least 20 minutes a day. I've used my app and I've sunbathed for 15 minutes each side, fairly unclothed, and I have generated 3,000 IU in half an hour. What you do that in the summer to build up your reserves. You use those reserves through the winter, and we tend to run out a bit. So then in the winter you might look at getting a supplement, maybe 2,000 IU a day. A lot of people go a lot higher. I don't like to tell people to go too high because we don't know what the blood serum levels of vitamin D is. If you've got too much vitamin D in your bloodstream, in your body, it can release calcium into the bloodstream, but vitamin K2 negates that to an extent. So sunlight is obviously the best form of getting vitamin D. Vitamin D3, which is the animal form of vitamin D. Vitamin D2 is the plant form, and we can eat that and our bodies convert it to vitamin D3, but not very effectively. But but fish liver oils are a very good source of vitamin D. Oily fish, butter, egg, there's the egg again, milk, sprouted seeds. Now mushrooms, if you place them in the sunlight, they will generate more vitamin D2, but I say it, every bit helps, but you won't get much vitamin D3 from it. So getting out into the sunlight, we've been told to be scared of the sunlight. I'm not saying get burnt. Please don't go out there and fry yourselves. 20 minutes a day on a nice sunny day like this, or even longer if you just do one side and then turn over. And zinc, 15 milligram a day. You see, these levels are the RDA, the daily recommended amount, and they keep it low. They do keep it low. They don't want anybody overdosing. They're afraid of people overdosing. Can go a bit higher. If you're interested in anything, I've got a Bible, nutrient Bible there. I can tell you exactly how high you can go. I'd say 25 milligrams a day. Found in beef, brewer's yeast, peppers, eggs again, ginger, herring, liver, milk, lamb, oysters. Oh God, who eats oysters? Sunflower, now pumpkin seeds. Okay, that's the one I tell people to eat. Pumpkin seeds are amazing. They're so delicious, and you can sprinkle them on any food item, whether it's savoury or sweet, whatever. Pumpkin seeds. Seafood, whole grains, yeast. And selenium, basically selenium comes down to 2 to 3 Brazil nuts a day. It's that simple. Some people are allergic to nuts, so you can get it from alfalfa, barley, broccoli, as well as the Brazil nuts, butter, cashews, crabs, celery, eggs, fish, garlic, kidney, liver, mackerel, oysters, peanuts, tuna, whole grain cereals, yeast, onions, turnip. I'm not trying to offend vegetarians or vegans here. I'm just saying where you will find it. We all make choices. But yeah, 2 to 3 Brazil nuts a day will give you the selenium you need. And again, coming back to the omega-3 fatty acids, polyunsaturated fatty acids, that stands for cod liver oil, mustard seed oil, linseed stroke flax oil, or the actual seeds, tuna, salmon. The oily fish basically, tuna, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, herring, sardines, and you find it in walnuts as well. So that's your omega-3s. And curcumin from turmeric, silymarin from milk thistle, ginkgolides from ginkgo biloba, alpha-lipoic acid, ginger, and there are herbs. I'm not a herbalist. Herbs are very, very powerful. If you've got something wrong with you, find a herbalist. Diet will prevent you getting ill. If you have a good diet, prevention is better than cure, and it will help you heal and repair. Herbs are very, very powerful. I'm not a herbalist, so I don't talk about that, but there's just a few herbs that are good for the immune system. So that is part one, and that was quite long. And how long have I taken on that? An hour. Nearly an hour, 10 minutes. Okay, I've got a lot to cover now. So I just want you to stand up, shake yourself a bit because it's a long time to just sit. And those chairs are uncomfortable. So before I go on to part 2, just shake, stretch, get yourself comfortable. Because I really, really want to give you this next part. Excellent. I find those chairs ever so uncomfortable. I get numb buttocks. And I get all fidgety. Okay, are you done? Right, let's move on. We haven't got much time. Right, understanding messenger RNA. So this is quite a leap in subject, but understanding the immune system helps you understand this. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time because, you know, where have we heard about mRNA? They're putting it in the COVID jabs. What is it? What's it doing? Where's it come from? I'm going to tell you. And actually, there aren't that many slides on this part. So, RNA. So, let's start with DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. And I don't know if you can see that very well, but you've got the double helix there. Double helix. And you've got these strands between these base, they're called bases between the strands, and they're called base pairs, and I'm going to explain that because it's important. Now DNA, it's there to store genetic information, and it acts as a template for protein synthesis. It has 2 strands that are twisted together like a twisted ladder, and this is called the double helix, okay? Right, what we've got here, there you are. So we've got our DNA, our double helix, and you've got these nitrogenous bases, base pairs. There are only ever 4. It's that simple. Adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Only 4. Adenine and thymine are paired. You will only find that base pair together. Adenine will never ever be found with guanine or cytosine, and guanine and cytosine, that's the pair. And if you can see that picture, you can see that they fit together. That's oval and that's pointy, so they can't match together. Okay, it's that. So that's simple. That's easy to understand. It's only ever 4 bases. So the bases on each strand point inwards on the ladder and form pairs with bases on the other side. Now here's interesting. A human has 3 billion base pairs in a DNA sequence. That's mind-blowing. That's just one DNA sequence. And the sequence of bases in DNA is called the genetic code. Okay, so that's our DNA, and this is where it all starts from. So RNA, ribonucleic acid, it's used to copy the DNA code and translate it into proteins. So here we can see we've got the bases, but they're not paired. We've only got 1/2 of the double helix here. Now that's obviously a very, very simple representation of what it looks like. It looks more like that. I don't know if you can see that. It's all bobbly. I think that might be an AI image. But it is actually quite messy. But for the purposes of this talk, we like to look at the nice simple representation of it because that helps our understanding. Right, types of RNA. Don't worry about this. It all makes sense. mRNA, and this is what I'm interested in, and I want to explain to you. So that's messenger RNA, and that's responsible for carrying information from genes for the production of polypeptides in the cytoplasm. And what does that mean, polypeptides? That's little proteins, amino acids. Cytoplasm is just the gel inside the cell. Okay. Transport RNA is responsible for transporting amino acids to ribosomes. Don't worry about that, I'm going to explain that. And rRNA is ribosomal RNA, and I'll be talking about ribosomes, but not talking about rRNA again. So, and I've just explained the difference, you know, nucleotides, the bases, the base pairs in DNA contains the 5-carbon sugar deoxyribose. So that's deoxyribonucleic acid, that's where the name comes from. But RNA is a single strand of nucleotides which contains the sugar ribose instead of deoxyribose. So that's ribonucleic acid, RNA. So that's the difference. So, right, that's a busy slide there, and it's quite simple. All I want to tell you is, on the right here, we've got our DNA, we've got our cytosine, C, guanine, G, adenine, A, and thymine, T. Simple. The RNA on the other side, which is only half of that, we've got our cytosine, C, guanine, G, adenine, A, and we've got uracil instead of thymine. And I only want to show you that because it comes up on another slide and I don't want you confused. But it's still only the 4. So this is that, but that's only in the RNA, not the DNA, okay? And so it's all about protein synthesis. We're making proteins. So how do we do that? So the first step is known as transcription. So you've got to create the RNA first. So, right, this is called RNA polymerase. Polymerase. Where have we heard polymerase before? PCR testing, polymerase chain reaction. So we've heard of that before, polymerase. And anything that ends in A's is an enzyme. So what's happening here? So this polymerase, it's to synthesize RNA from the DNA template. So I can't get over this. This is like a miracle to me. So what you've got here, here we've got our DNA, double-stranded helix. It goes into the polymerase. It's feeding in that way. It unzips it. Down here, it reads the 1/2 and makes an mRNA transcript. Okay, so it's reading our DNA, only the 1/2, and then as it's fed out, it zips it back up again. Isn't that amazing? And that's happening in every cell, every moment. Our DNA is becoming unzipped and then zipped back up again, and we have RNA. So the DNA has to be unzipped at the section which codes for the necessary protein, and a complementary strand of messenger RNA is mRNA is then produced from the DNA strand which carries the code, and that's our mRNA popping out there. That's mRNA. It's a code. So what do we do with it? So the next step is called translation. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. So mRNA, that's our strand that we've just produced in the enzyme polymerase. It travels to the ribosome in the cell where the message is read. And a ribosome is just an organelle in the cell. And there are lots of organelles in the cell, and we don't need to worry about any of them for the purposes of this talk, except the ribosome. See if I can find it. And they're just little dots dotted around. They're tiny, tiny, tiny. So they're in the cell. So that mRNA has to get into that organelle, the ribosome. And then what happens to it there? Translation. So the bases, the A, G, C, and now U, not T, are read in the ribosome in sets of 3. They're called codons, triplets. So this slide, I don't know how well you can see it. This is the code for certain amino acids. For example, the first one there, methionine, is AUG. That is the code to make the amino acid methionine. And threonine is ACG. That's really interesting, isn't it? And then eventually it comes to UAG, which means stop. So that's how it reads it in the triplets that are called codons. Right, so we're aiming to create amino acids. There are 20 standard amino acids that make up proteins in the human body. Of these, the human body can synthesize, via this process I'm describing, 11. So what's happened to the other 9? Our body can't make them. It's not made via this process. We have to eat it. And that's why they're called essential amino acids. Okay, does that make sense? There are, in fact, 22 standard amino acids. 2 have been recently discovered, but they haven't made it into the textbooks yet. Okay, but we have to eat 9 amino acids. I'm sorry for the vegetarians, but the best sort of it is meat. It's complete protein. It's meat. You can get it from a vegetarian diet, and vegan diet, but you've got to know what you're doing, because the beans and pulses, everything's got protein in, but the amino acids you want them in the right ratio, and it's hard work really to get it from a vegetarian diet. But you know, eat a chop, and you've got it. It's there. But I don't want to offend the vegetarians. I respect that. So this process is for 11 amino acids. The other 9 we can't make. So I said about the ribosome. So this is the organelle in the cell. And what's happening here is this strand of mRNA with our triplets, the codons, right, there we go, is feeding into the ribosome. There it is, mRNA. That's translating it, and the tRNA, which I mentioned ages ago, transport RNA, out pops the amino acids. That's how we make amino acids, and that's what mRNA is for. And then when that mRNA is done and dusted, used, the body destroys it. It does not hang about. That is natural mRNA. It's not the case necessarily for the synthetic mRNA, which I will talk about. Right, that's quite a complex subject that I've tried to simplify as much as possible. Does that make sense to you? So you get your DNA, half the strand is read, a copy is made that is the mRNA that's fed into the ribosome, and that makes amino acids. So that's what it comes down to. So when they put mRNA in the jabs, can't call them vaccines really, what coding are they putting in? So at this point I have to talk about vaccinations. So based on long-lasting antibodies, and I talked about the immune system and the memory, long-lasting antibodies and the memory B and T cells. So the primary exposure, we've never come across it before, that's slow to respond and can take several days. And the secondary response, subsequent exposure, is much faster. The body remembers. And it can churn out these antibodies, and we don't even know we've got the disease. So that is the basis of the vaccination theory. So traditional, I put there, traditional vaccines contain attenuated, weakened or killed whole or portions of microbes. What could possibly go wrong? And this ensures the microbes are not pathogenic and will cause an immune response, but not the illness. It's not always the case. I think the polio vaccines are weakened viruses or microbes, and they did make people ill. But that's the subject for another talk. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. I haven't got time. So it activates the primary response so that when exposed to a living pathogen, the secondary response is much quicker. That's the theory behind vaccinations. Isn't that wonderful? Fantastic. None of us should ever succumb to any disease again. But the mRNA vaccine, how does it work? Right. Okay. I don't think you can read that. I'm going to read that out. Right. This is not my words now. Okay, I apologise in advance. The mRNA vaccine contains lipid or fat bubbles that surround a segment of synthetic mRNA, which provides cells with the instructions to make a certain viral protein. And we know how it does that now because I've just explained. So by injecting cells with synthetic mRNA that encodes a viral spike protein, an mRNA vaccine can direct human cells to make a viral spike protein and evoke an immune response without a person ever having been exposed to the viral material. Fantastic. So these viral spike proteins or antigens normally coat the surface of the virus and are recognised by antibodies and other immune cells that prepare and protect the body against the virus. If a person is later exposed to the virus, antibodies and other parts of the immune system can recognise and attack the virus before it can infect healthy cells or cause illness. And this is what they officially tell us. This is the official line. This is how they're selling it to us. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? If you don't know, and you do know now because I've just told you about mRNA, if you don't know, and I think we've all gained a lot of knowledge over the last few years anyway, you think, oh, that's good. Yeah, bring it on. So it's from a site called www.genome.gov. Understanding, blah, 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 understanding COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. So that's the official line. That's what they tell us. What could possibly go wrong? So, right, so that's the end of part 2. Part 3, right, because I want to talk about solutions as well. And I have got a little bit of time left because we did start late, okay. So part 3. But is there really mRNA in vaccines? That's what they tell us. But, right, according to Dr. Brian Ardis, and probably most of you have come across him before, he says there isn't. And it's so interesting that I want to talk about it, and I've got a book here. Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies, Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. This is the most fascinating book. Hats off to Dr. Brian Ardis. He's really done a lot of research and connected dots very, very well. I'm just going to briefly explain what the book's about, and I'm not going to do it justice. I can't. You have to read it yourself. Right. So according to him, there's no mRNA in the vaccines. It's a lot more sinister than that. There is no mRNA in any COVID shot, and apparently this was published by the National Institute for Health, NIH. To be fair, he hasn't just made bold claims, he has found the source of the information and referenced it in here, and you can go and look at it for yourself. So what is in it? What isn't it? So he says that long COVID symptoms are the same symptoms as snake venom. I'm really, and you've got to suspend belief here at this point because I'm not explaining it as well as he can. But this is the basis of the book. So the vaccines contain a genetic code for sure, with instruction to produce poisons in your body, and these poisons are identical to 36 snake poisons. It's not just snake poisons, there's sea urchin poisons and something else as well. So how do they get into us? How? So the NIH says that it's DNA plasmid technology. Now I've come across plasmids, and you might have heard about plasmids, and they're very interesting, and I want to tell you about plasmids. This takes me to Sucharit Bhakti MD. You've probably come across him. Some of you have, some of you haven't. This slide is in German, but it's just he gave a talk in German or something. I just took the picture. So it's really complicated, this plasmids, but I worked on it, and I think I've summarised it in a very, very simple form. And I want to explain it to you, and it doesn't take many slides. So forget mRNA at this point. We're thinking plasmids. So plasmid is a small circular piece of DNA. It's different to the chromosomal DNA that I've just been talking about. It replicates independently of chromosomal DNA. Plasmids are mainly found in bacteria. So we've got our bacterial DNA there, and we've got these round things which are plasmids, okay? Just hold that in your mind. So plasmids are stable. They can be kept forever and recreated by man, thus introducing genes such as for the spike in coronavirus. And this is how they do it. So the plasmid, that circular bit of DNA, is placed into bacteria that does not already have a plasmid. The bacteria is reproduced until they have trillions of cells, and bacteria reproduces really quickly, so it's a really good way of getting vast quantities of these cells. They then open up the bacteria cell and remove the plasmid. The plasmid is then packaged into lipid nanoparticles, which are artificial substances that protect the RNA inside from being destroyed in your body. Now, at this stage, technically, they should have created RNA from the DNA in the plasmids, technically, but they've packaged them up, lipid nanoparticles. It's like a Trojan horse gets into the cells. Cell doesn't know what's inside that lipid nanoparticle. So each injection contains billions of these packages, billions. Any cell in the body is able to take them up like a Trojan horse, and the cells then start making the spike protein. Or do they? They start making whatever is coded in that plasmid. And according to Dr. Ardis, it's these proteins that are very similar to snake venom. So now, according to Dr. Bhakti, it's been found that up to 30% of the lipid nanoparticles contain plasmids, not mRNA. He says 30%. Dr. Ardis says 100%. And the NIH has said, it's published, that there's no mRNA. It's the plasmids, it's the full DNA. If you read that book, it's fascinating, and how they tested it and what happened to the animals. So plasmids have their own life and multiply in human cells. When the cell divides, called mitosis, it's at that point that the bacterial DNA can be incorporated into the human DNA. So it can be incorporated. They said it will never affect your DNA. Right, it can. It's a process called transfection. And how do we know? There's this study from January 2022 entitled Transfected Plasmid DNA is Incorporated into the Nucleus via Nuclear Envelope Reformation at telophase. And telophase is the very final stage of mitosis, the cells splitting into two, dividing. They've found it, they've proved it, that happens, it can happen. Shocking. I mean, what are they doing to our DNA? It's genetic manipulation, isn't it? So going back to Dr. Ardis, he's connected many dots in a very impressive way. He evidences all his claims and provides links to researches, articles, and examples. He claims the spike protein is actually a snake venom protein. It was administered via the water supply in order to make people ill with COVID-19 symptoms. He produced a film called Watch the Water in 2022, and I suggest you watch it. If you don't read he summarises the book in that film. It's not long, it's less than 50 minutes, that film. Watch the Water. Right, remdesivir, which we know is the drugs that they were giving to people just before they died. No link, maybe. And the C19 vaccines also contain snake venom peptides. So what he's claiming is they put it in the water to give us COVID-19. They then jab us with something that's got snake venom peptides in. And this is a shortened quote from a research article in July 2021. Toxin-like peptides, almost identical to toxic components of venoms from animals, were identified in samples from COVID-19 patients, but not in the control samples. So they're finding these snake-like toxins and proteins. And these snakes are very rare. You will never ever find a doctor that has come across a patient with crake snake poisoning. You just won't. They're very rare. So all the COVID-19 patients had these proteins in them, but not the people that didn't have COVID-19. So there's a link, if you want to watch that. That's a link I found. There are probably other places you can find it. Watch the water. Now here's something interesting, if you like conspiracies. Who's watched The Handmaid's Tale? It's very dark, and it's set in a dystopian America, modern day-ish, where most of the people are sterile and babies aren't being born. So they take the fertile women and they allocate them to the commanders, and they are raped once a month via what they call a ceremony, so it's okay, to try and make babies. All through that series, so I think there are about 6 seasons, all the way through they keep referring, the people are infertile because of what they put in the water. Now they try and tell us through these programs and films, don't they? And they keep saying, because of what we put in the water. And there's this film, Watch the Water. But what's really interesting is America, they renamed it to Gilead. There is a company called Gilead that makes remdesivir and makes these snake proteins that are going into the vaccines. Gilead, it's a company. And that's what they called America in Handmaid's Tale, and they kept telling us it was because of the water. So maybe Dr. Ardis is onto something. And if you're still not convinced, Time magazine, the cover, you always look at the cover of Time magazine, they're always telling us something. Back in January 1999, can you see that? Right, it's the double helix, but one half of it is a snake. Can you see the snake in there? And it says here, how genetic engineering will change us in the next century. 1999, we're in the next century. It's now. So the article describes how something will change us in the next century, which we are now in. So is the future of medicine to change your God-given DNA into half human, half snake? How dare they? How dare they? But Time magazine, what they put on the cover, you always got to look at the cover, and there it is, half snake. So there you go. Right, okay, so that's that book. I really, really recommend you read it. It's ever so interesting. But we've got to look at solutions here. No one needs to be unfair, because there are solutions, and bless him, Dr. Ardis, he's come up with a wonderful solution. Right, he's got this product called Foreign Protein Cleanse. I've got a bottle here. And afterwards, if you want to just taste a little bit, you can. I've got a spare bottle here. It's not cheap. I can let someone have one bottle for £50, which is cheaper than you'll buy it from. It's about £53 plus postage, but if you buy more, it's cheaper. And I'm going to go through the ingredients on this because this is very impressive. And you might be convinced that it's a good thing to buy if you're at all worried about the spike protein. And if it's in the water, or you know, all these snake venoms, if it's in the water, it could be in all of us. We don't know. So the ingredients. First ingredient is wild-crafted lobelia, Indian tobacco. It does not contain nicotine, but contains lobeline, which imitates the effects of nicotine on the human body. Right, and I'm going to talk a bit more about nicotine in a minute. So spike proteins, and these snake proteins are spiky, they look like the spike protein, they bind to nicotine receptors as well as the ACE2 receptors. But there are no ACE2 receptors in the lungs, and it's supposed to be an upper respiratory tract infection. So lobeline protects the receptors and kicks out anything unwanted, okay? So it stops anything foreign getting into the cells. The next ingredient is licorice. Licorice can affect your blood pressure, so if you're on medication, have a bit of caution if you've got high blood pressure. So it contains an ingredient called glycyrrhizin acid, and it dissolves blood clots. There are at least 12 blood clotting factors known to science, and GL dissolves blood clots created by all, including those triggered by snake venom. And we want to dissolve those blood clots, don't we? Wild-crafted wormwood, powerful anti-parasitic herb, and it has a similar effect on the nicotine receptors as ivermectin. Cinnamon cassia contains a compound called coumarin, which is a natural anti-venom by preventing blood clotting caused by venoms. So that's an anti-clotting agent. Mucuna extract helps counteract the harmful impact of Bungaroo toxin, and that's the venin protein found in the venom of the crate snakes. This is a rare snake, yet its venom was found in millions of people suffering from COVID-19. But ashwagandha also blocks Bungaroo toxin. It's not in this product because you wouldn't have room for anything else if you put the ashwagandha in, but you can take ashwagandha on top of this. Again, seek out a herbalist. Lemon balm, a powerful herb that has immune supportive and cancer preventing properties. Lemon balm has the ability to prevent and protect humans from most viruses. And turmeric is an effective liver detoxing plant and is included to cleanse snake venom or spike protein out of the body. Citicoline, a brain chemical to help improve memory and brain function after a stroke and many other conditions. Snake venom or spike protein blocks the flow of citicoline from transmitting signals along cells, so we don't want that. I haven't got much more to go, so don't worry, bear with me, keep with me. More ingredients. Supercharged C60. The Americans seem to really like taking this, but it's not something that we find much over here, and it's very expensive. It's a carbon molecule, and it has the ability to bind to and eliminate graphene oxide. That is a subject for a whole talk in its own right, graphene oxide, and many other toxins from the body. He claims that graphene oxide is being added to processed foods, released in chemtrails, and reportedly discovered in COVID vaccines. And I think it might be in other vaccines as well, including dental anaesthetic. So this eliminates graphene oxide. Right, Cu1, that's actually copper. Venoms steal copper and zinc from every cell in our body, and so does glyphosate. So when the copper leaves the cells, iron follows the spike protein into the cell, and then it oxidizes, which is the same as rusting, which really messes with the cell. Super concentrated liquid gold enhances the effect of the other ingredients to neutralize snake venom. So that's the contents. I've put the website there where you can buy it in the UK. And he's got a lot of other interesting products on there as well, worth looking at. They are expensive.
How long does the one bottle last for?
A month. A month. Yeah. Right, he talks about nicotine. He said the results are proven for patches, gum or tobacco leaves. I don't recommend anybody start smoking because there are hundreds of toxins in cigarettes. And he claims that's what makes people addicted. He claims that it can reverse Parkinson's. He claims that many have had arthritis and other inflammatory conditions improved or reversed within days. You don't have to believe anything I'm saying here. I want you to do your own research. I'm just presenting to you what I found that I find interesting, okay? I'm not telling you to do this. Be discerning. As everything in the world at the moment, just be discerning. But I find this very interesting and worth looking at. Nicotine releases the venom proteins which block signals get into our brain and indeed throughout the body. And he claims nicotine is not addictive. It's the pyrazines in the cigarettes that are highly addictive. And, you know, I love trying these things. I've actually tried nicotine patches myself, and I keep forgetting to put them on. If I was addicted to nicotine, I wouldn't forget to put them on. I'd be crying out for them. So, and I've never smoked in my life. And according to The Economist, May 2020, smokers seem less likely than non-smokers to fall ill with COVID-19. They never saw any smoker with COVID-19. Just makes you think, doesn't it? And right, it's more solution. I've nearly finished. If you're still not recovering, you may need to resolve E. coli in the gut. And as I said, these plasmids they put into bacteria, and it was very likely E. coli bacteria. And if it's in the gut, it's going to take longer to recover. So DNA plasmids are being used to program common bacteria found in the gut of nearly everyone. So he recommends the following for clearing E. coli and yeast from your body. And it's very simple. Black cumin seed oil, Nigella sativa. They say that's the cure for everything but death. And I had a beautiful full bottle in my fridge and I dropped it on the floor and smashed it. I was very upset at that. Black cumin seed oil. Spearmint extract and peppermint extract. So your essential oils. I think about 1 drop of peppermint is equivalent to about 30 bags of peppermint tea. And also helpful, apple cider vinegar, barberry, cranberry juice, colloidal silver, grapefruit seed extract, DMSO, and food grade hydrogen peroxide. I don't know how to use them, but he says they're also helpful. And then we're coming to Dr. McCulloch's solution, and I think most of us may have already seen this because it's been bandied out for a long time. But Dr. Ardis also recommends this as well. He quotes this. So we're talking about nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin. So you take for at least 3 months, 12 months or more for multiple shots. That's for detoxifying from the spike protein. You can get products where all 3 of those are in, but they're not nearly a high enough dose. It works out very expensive. If you're taking that for 12 months, you need to budget for that and give up something else. But yeah, that's quite a good protocol. And he's quoted there, patients indeed are getting better on this approach. Dr. Peter McCulloch. Right. And finally, this is my last slide. How are we doing with time? Oh, it's okay. Right, finally, healing takes time. Be patient, be kind to yourself, be consistent with your healing protocol. If you don't see results in 2 weeks, you're not meant to. You've got to be consistent. You've got to carry on for 3 months maybe, or even longer. Be persistent. Don't give up. Don't try something, think, oh, it didn't work, but you only took a month's supply. Refined sugars suppress the immune system. Remove these in order to speed up healing. Focus on eating organic foods. Drink plenty of distilled or spring water, clean water, not straight from the tap. Exercise for at least 20 to 30 minutes daily. Practice grounding and spending some time in the sun. I think we've been doing a lot of that this weekend. It's a beautiful weekend for healing. Sleep, plenty of it. Look into the benefits of intermittent fasting. I haven't got time to go into that now. Very, very powerful for healing, intermittent fasting. Meditate and show gratitude. Allow love and laughter into your life. And that concludes my presentation today. Thank you all for bearing with me. It's thank you. That was a lot to take in, I know, but I hope you've learnt something, even if it's just the principles, and you can take that away. And I just want you to appreciate your immune system and look after it, because I don't know what's coming down the road. I don't know what else they're going to fling at us. Be ready for it. But if you want to try some of this, or even there's one bottle I can sell, please come and see me now. And finally, just one last thing. Oops. Oh, good job that wasn't the open one. Right, I do have some copies of my book to sell. When the Shift Hits the Fan, it's a nutritionist guide to long-term healthy food planning, preparation, and storage. And if you're worried about food security, everything you need to know is in there. All food items that are good, that will help you thrive, that will last a long time, how to store them, how to prepare them, and there's some recipes in there. A bit about foraging and growing food and microgreens and that sort of thing. It's a good book to have at this time. So if you want, I've got just a few copies there. They're £15 each if anybody's interested.